It's the Hoffman Show, Team 980, always live as well on the free, yeah, I said it, it's free, Odyssey app. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday here on the Hoffman Show, which means we take a ton of your calls at 301-230-0980. We are checking the vibes of all of you on the day after Dan Quinn has named Jayden Daniels the starting quarterback for the Commanders. I'm guessing the vibes are high. It's preseason. Vibes tend to be high this time of year anyway. But, Anthony, I also know that there's folks that are willing to be, I don't want to say be contrarians, but willing to have opinions that go against the grain. So I'm just asking for honest feedback. This is the time of the week that we take the pulse of the fan base. And we did it throughout not only the entirety of NFL season, we actually did it through a lot of the Wizards season as well, and into the spring. But we, through obviously some of that was draft related as well, NFL wise. But this is the time we do this. It's fun. We have chats with the people. We open up the phone lines as wide as we ever open them, and we just let the magic of radio happen on it's today's National Radio Day.
Yeah, I think this is also the time of the year where, we get some hot takes. It is the start of the season, so we might get a couple of bold predictions going into the season, and this the time to do it, to be honest.
Do you have one that you'd like to share with
Do I have any
people?
bold predictions?
Yeah, specifically Commanders adjacent?
I think my boldest is really probably a popular opinion more so. I think Terry's going to be destined for, a career year. I think he's going to...
Ooh, that's fun.
I think if I had to put numbers to it, I think Terry is going to be a 1,200-yard receiver, 90-catch guy.
Those will both be career highs.
Yeah. Maybe even 100. I don't know. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. I think they're going to try to feed him the ball.
I definitely think that they will as well. I think 100's a lot.
All right, 100 might be forced.
But hey, you want to be bold.
90 might be cool then.
Yeah, I feel like 90 and 1,200. I mean, in 2020, he had 87 and 1,100. And that feels doable in an offense that's going to air it out more than any offense he's ever been a part of outside of last year, which was, what's the word? A disaster. 79 catches, 1,000 yards. Of course, it took till the end of that game to get him over 1,000. But just bad quarterback play, bad play calling, silly usage, on down the list. I think that's probably smart. Like they're gonna make an emphasis to get him the ball. And God, who was I listening to the other day talk about this? Oh, I know who it was. I sent this to you. It was Brady on the Herd.
Oh, yep, I put it up.
When he talked about, you've got to get your playmakers involved. And he talked about just the basic fundamentals of playing outside receiver in the league. That, every single snap that you huddle, these dudes have to run 25 yards out to their split. Then they have to run down the field on a vertical route. Then they have to run all the way back to the huddle. They have to get the play call. They have to run back out to the sideline. They have to, you're just running in a giant triangle, especially if you're running vertical stuff. And if you catch the ball, then you get hit. And a lot of it's thankless. And you're probably getting hit and got hands on you. You're trying to win every route. You're trying to win every release. And if there's 60 plays in the game, even if you get 10 targets, which is a pretty good number, that's still 5 out of 6 plays that you're not getting targeted. That's a lot of not being involved. Or a lot of, I'm doing work for my teammates. A lot of blocking.
And cardio in.
Yeah. So, yeah, getting a lot of cardio in, as Terry said famously last year. So, quarterbacks who understand that and play callers that understand that know, we got to get our guys the ball to make them feel involved in the game, especially early. That buys you a little bit of time to then let things play out. And with the amount that they use the screen game here, because that was the other thing Brady talked about. Really great. Brady's going to be awesome on TV, dude. It's going to be really good. I love Greg Olsen and think he's worthy of a number one job. I don't know that whether Brady will come in and immediately be better than Olsen, but damn, Brady's going to be good. But Tom talked about how Like getting the ball to Julian Edelman or Gronk was easy. Welker was easy because those guys are so much closer to the ball, and you can call a lot more routes. It's easy to get the ball out quickly to them. Outside, like you don't have two-way goes. You have to win in a more specific way. They're harder throws. They're longer throws. And so there's just a higher degree of difficulty. Like how hard is it to get a guy involved? If he's an outside receiver solely, very. But that's another thing, too, that Cliff is not afraid to move guys around. So I think bold prediction, now that we know kind of what Jayden is, or we think we know what Jayden is going into the season, Terry, 90, 1,200.
How many tuds?
I think his career high is 7. I'm going to say he's not going to get that. His
10.
7 is a rookie. 10?
Bold predictions, Craig. All right,
I mean,
my official bold prediction, 1,200 yards.
Okay.
I'm going to go 95 catches.
Wow.
I'm going to go 95 catches.
Okay.
And because you got to remember, they got an extra game from, his rookie season.
That's true. He also hasn't played in 17 games except for – well, actually, no, that's not true. The last 3 years he's played in 17.
Yeah. So, all right, 1,200, 95 catches, 10 tuds. 10 tuds, baby.
His career high, 7 on that front.
Yep.
He has 9 combined the last 2 years.
Yeah. I blame EB for last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think you should blame EB for last year. In part, Sam that certainly can take some of that blame with him to Seattle. Not saying that in a mean way, just the reality that who Terry is, I don't think changed. Who the pieces are around him, I think did. The offense did. I'll take. I feel like right on 90, 91, 92 catches, somewhere right around 1,200, and like 6-7 touchdowns feels about right.
So you don't think he has a career high in tuds?
No, I think that in the red zone, players that are more over the middle of the field, it's just easier. I mean, Terry, they have thrown some fades to Terry, and he will go up and get the football.
Yes, he will.
So I do think he will have a pretty good productive year. I also think he will have a couple of deep ones. Look, he has a 3-touchdown game, or he catches 2 deep ones and then a slant or a fade or whatever in the red zone.
Helps a lot.
Then you're halfway there. Then to my prediction, then it's going to feel a little silly, but that's just not who he's been and not the areas of the field where he has shined. He will certainly help you get down there, but we've never seen him theoretically play with a quarterback this good. So there's that as well. The last guy that, probably the best guy that he's played with is Alex. And, that was a long time ago. I guess that was 2020. 2019, his rookie year, he played with a billion different quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I know because I was there.
He had 4 that year? Was Josh Johnson the 4th quarterback that year?
I think that was 18.
Oh,
that
man.
Johnson was there.
Okay, never mind then.
19 was the year
that 3.
They had drafted Dwayne. And so it was Case, Colt, Dwayne.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Allen was 2020?
Yeah, Kyle Allen, Dwayne, and Alex in 2020.
Oh, yeah, because of the Panthers. Yep.
Yeah. They were doing a bit on G&D yesterday. Can you name all the quarterbacks that have started week 1 back to Kirk Cousins?
Like in order?
I'll order or not. It's probably
Okay.
easier in some ways to go in order.
Yeah, probably. 2015, well.
2015, 15, 16, and 17 were Cousins.
Yeah.
So after Kirk leaves, because that's the last time, the reason I'm picking Kirk is not arbitrary. That's the last time they had starters start 2 years in a row. Kirk started 3. So the hope is that this time next year when we do a vibe check, which we're about to embark on, that it's Jayden Daniels coming off a strong rookie season. How do you feel about him going into year 2? And he's the starter again. So how many can you name the guys? I got to think if I can do it going back, even though I heard it yesterday.
I think I can do it.
Okay. So 18 is?
18 was not Case. 18. What was 18? I'm off to a rough start, Craig.
Yeah. and I'm like, wait, was Case 18?
No, Case was 19. I know for a fact Case was 19.
I'm pretty sure Case was 19.
Okay, I'll skip over 18 right now. I'll come back to that one. I know Colt McCoy was not one of those quarterbacks though.
No, he was not.
Because they said it yesterday. All right, so 19 Case Keenum, 20.
Oh, 18 was Alex.
Okay, Alex, man, how did I forget that?
Right.
That was Zaire's rookie year. They came here and won. Okay, Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Then you got Case Keenum.
Yeah.
2020, you had Ryan Fitzpatrick was 21.
This one's easy. They drafted him in 19 and started him in 20.
Oh, Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
2021, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yep.
2022.
How we all wish we could forget.
2022. Wentz.
Yep.
2023, we had Sammy Howe. 2024, we got that boy. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Jayden Daniels.
Yeah. All right. Good job.
Thank you.
Nicely done, Anthony.
You helped me a little bit, though.
Just a little bit. But, teamwork makes the dream work. And
Yes.
so does the internet. Okay. When we get back, we'll take your calls. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday. So this is the part of the show where you tell us how you're feeling about the Commanders as we head into the season, and specifically Jayden Daniels being named the starting quarterback yesterday. 301-230-0980 is the number. 301-230-0980. Your calls for the rest of the hour here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, so we're taking your calls at 301-230-0980. Jayden Daniels, starting quarterback for the Commanders as we head into the 2024 season. What's the vibe? What you think? Think back to what you thought when they drafted him throughout the draft process. What you think they should do with him over the next couple of weeks to get him ready. Like, I'm open to anything Jayden Daniels adjacent. That's kind of the point here on a Vibe Check Tuesday. We see where you are, what you're thinking about. 301-230-0980. Let's get things started with Noel in Chicago. Noel, what's up? Thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, good afternoon, Craig. Thanks for taking my call. Good chatting with you guys again. I'm very, very just happy, relaxed for the first time in a long time now that Jayden is officially QB number one, and it's been great to watch, just watching his progression, just watching him go through all of these certain steps to just earn everything that's in front of him. And just to kind of share with you, Craig, like, know that I live in Chicago, obviously, and like everybody in this town, they're so just over the moon about Caleb Williams. So I got to hear from it from my wife, from all of my friends when I'm taking my son to soccer, and they're all like looking at me and saying, you guys are going to have a rough couple of years. And I tell them, honestly, I'm very happy with the quarterback that I got, and I prefer him over Caleb anyways. They think I'm nuts, but I'm telling them, like, just our timelines are different, guys. Like, I'm really happy with Jayden Daniels, and I think he's exactly what the Commanders need, and I think everybody in our fan base is really thrilled that we have Jayden, and I don't know. I don't know why people think that you'd rather have Caleb. I'm like, I really wouldn't. So hopefully you feel the same way I do, because I just feel blessed, honestly, with our quarterback situation now that he's quarterback number one.
I think that Jayden and Caleb are a lot closer in terms of what they can do in the NFL than I thought going into the process, because I just assumed that Caleb was way out in front. And it's not that Caleb isn't every bit as good as people make him out to be. It's that Jayden also might be something close to that. I will say, like, the creative nature of Caleb is such a unique attribute, and he really does do it on a level that I'm not going to call Mahomesian, but like if you squint, you can see it. That not taking that in a league where that skill seems to be as valuable as ever feels a little silly. But I also, like, I agree with you, at least in the terms of, like, I will go as far as to say I'm very, very happy with the quarterback that they got. And I think the other part of, to tell your Bears fans friends to screw off that you're correct on is we're on different timelines. The Bears decided with their rookie quarterback right now, he is good enough immediately, and that they are going to surround him and try to win right now. They spent money. They traded for Montez Sweat. They signed Keenan Allen. They, obviously surround him with another playmaker at that 9th pick in Rome Odunze, where maybe another team might have gone offensive line there with a little bit longer view of things. And I get that as well with where they are, because Caleb might be that good right now.
Right.
And because on a rookie quarterback contract, every year is so vital. But at the same time, like, they are pushing, and their coach, by the way, is on the hot seat in the way that this regime is not. They're in the middle of something. They built some things and some infrastructure knowing they were going to be bad, where they could then insert a quarterback and hit the ground running. The Commanders, like, I'd rather be them in that way than Washington, because the Commanders were bad by accident. They didn't do any pre-planning. Rivera just was bad at the job. And so in that way, like, I would rather be them in 2024 than Washington. But I think you're also correct to be like, I'm chilling. I'm relaxed. We got time. We got people that know we got time, and we're not gonna. I feel pretty confident that Washington is not gonna have to veer off chart, and they have multiple directions they could go. Where Chicago is like locked in. If this doesn't work, oh boy, I hope Caleb's not really pissed off and wants to leave in 4 years.
And it's not only just like the timelines. It's also just like the quarterback, like themselves, as far as like who's better attributed to the situation that's in front of them. And I think, and I tried telling them, like, guys, like, if Caleb was with the Commanders right now, we would obviously be like wowed by his talent the way you guys are, but it's different because of the skill players that are on our team and the skill players that are on your team whereas Jayden is the building block that we're building towards and trying to build around. Caleb was like the last missing piece, I think, for you guys to reach that next level. So, again, it's great, though, that, I'm happy for, obviously, all my Bears friends and everything like that, but I'm happy for what we're building in Washington.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Noel, thanks for getting us started on a great call on Vibe Check Tuesday. 301-230-0980. Anthony, by the way, that reminds me, it's Tuesday, so Hard Knocks comes out tonight.
Dang, you want to know what's crazy? I still haven't even watched it, but tonight I am. I have nothing to do.
There you go.
I'm doing it tonight.
No, you're not. You're going to play Madden.
Nah, I said I'm going to give Madden 2 weeks before I play Madden.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 2 weeks.
Let the glitches get out?
Man, the bugs in the game are ruthless right now.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't like them. I'd rather steer clear.
Like, are they less careful now? Because it used to be, the game was on a cartridge or a CD, and once it's out, it's out.
Yeah.
And I guess there were some, updates that they started to do over time, but, now the games are digital, so they can just update the entire game. It's not a big deal. But how did we get to a point? We're taking a sidetrack from Vibe Check Tuesday, but please call in 301-230-0980. I'll take your vibes on Madden. But no, mostly we're talking Jayden Daniels and him being named the starter and how everybody feels about it. But where did we get to a place with video games that they're just like, we'll figure it out as we go? When did that happen?
I guess when they started to go digital.
Because people still do buy the games, like the hard copies.
Yeah.
Are they just screwed?
I don't remember updating games back in the day either. I think the game was just the game.
Yeah, I feel like there was a very small period where there were some updates. Well, I guess maybe more so, it wasn't the game, but you could at least update the rosters. That was the thing that you could update, where you could download a fresh roster update, and that would be nice because if a guy all of a sudden was good they didn't expect, it's like, oh cool, this 7th round rookie that's gonna be an all pro is not a 67 anymore or a 55 because he was a 7th round rookie. They've got him up higher. They need to do that. Oh, I guess the problem is I wish they'd do that in the game formerly known as FIFA, in FC 24, but FC 25 is about to come out, so they're not going to do it. They're just going to make you buy a new game.
Are you excited?
No, I don't want to spend money on games.
Well, that too.
I'm like, I want to play them, and I want to not feel like the thing I'm playing is outdated, but I don't really have a choice.
Yeah. And also, we still haven't played our game of FIFA yet. I'm patiently waiting for the day.
When do you want to come over?
This time of the year gets tough for me. Friday and Saturdays. It's looking like a Sunday or a weekday.
I mean, you could just come
college
over.
Football.
We could come over after the show.
That too.
We could also, on a Sunday, could we do a bit where you came over and watched the Commanders game, and then I kicked your ass in FIFA /FC 24, or perhaps at that point, if I give in, FC 25.
Well, I don't think you would necessarily win, but I'm down to come over and watch the game first. Yeah.
I mean, in my career mode, I just recently switched positions. By the way, I was a striker, and I was like, this game is kind of too easy. And if I ratchet up a difficulty level, it becomes impossible. So I'm kind of caught in between. So I was like, how do I challenge myself differently? So now I'm a midfielder.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's fun. It's invited a new challenge.
That's how I am on NCAA.
You're stuck in between difficulty levels?
Nobody plays on Heisman. Heisman is impossible.
But if you play on what's below Heisman?
Competitive, I think. I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, I think there's amateur in FC. It's amateur, semi-pro, professional, world class. Then whatever Heisman mode is. There's one above, and I'm stuck between professional and world class.
Yeah,
I can play on world class, but it's a little more frustrating than I want it to be. All right. 301-230-0980. That's enough BSing from us. Let's take some calls. 301-230-0980. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we are taking your calls on Jayden Daniels being named the starting quarterback of the Washington Commanders. Big news that comes through yesterday. Your reaction to it, 301-230-0980 on the Hoffman Show. And the Team 980 and always live is on the free audience. Live as well. Whatever. You get it. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 if you'd like to check us out there as well. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we're taking your calls at 301-230-0980. Your reaction to Jayden Daniels. How are you feeling about the number 2 overall pick being named the starting quarterback? Let's get to the phones, and let's get started with Gene, who I think has something tangibly very related to Jayden Daniels he would like to talk about. Gene, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Thanks very much, Craig, for taking my call. I love the show. I'm a first-time caller.
Thank you.
But I love the show because it's analytical, and I learn so much all the time. So I don't know if I'm going to help anyone here, but my vibe is great. I love the skill set. I love the coaching we're getting. But my vibe is dampened a bit in terms of number of wins because I feel like it usually takes an offensive line about 5 games to start playing as a unit, and I don't think we can expect too many wins in those first 5 games. So what do you think about that?
It's an interesting question, Gene. I think line play can always be a make or break, but the line itself isn't the only thing that contributes to that. And I'll try to explain this in my, I guess to use your word, analytical way, right? If the ball is out instantly, frequently, then how well they pass protect doesn't really matter. Of course, you're eventually going to run into a third or second and long situation where they're going to have to hold up a little bit. But the way that Cliff calls plays and the way Jayden makes decisions, the threat level from a subpar O-line from a talent standpoint, or in your concern, one that hasn't had the time to gel, is far less because, okay, you lose if you're Andrew Wiley around the corner in 2.4 seconds. Well, Jayden gets the ball out in 2.2, and now you're fine. Last year, it's like the ball stuck to Sam's hand, the longer developing plays. You need 3 seconds for it all to work, and that 2.4 seconds means it looks like Sam Howell's getting murdered every snap. So I think between that, a good running game where you certainly need some gelling to be able to hit your combination blocks and all that kind of stuff, but tends to happen a little bit faster, and the general escapability that Jayden has and feel that he has for the game to maybe even move within the pocket and elude pressure by sliding a foot one way or the other, I think that stuff is going to help them maintain competitiveness as that line comes together, to the point that I actually wonder how much fans are going to recognize it, because typically we start harping on a line play from the outside when it comes to quarterback sacks and pressures and stuff that's really obvious. When it's not that great, but the offense in all the ways I've described covers for it, we don't actually pay attention that much. And I actually think that could be the case for the Commanders. Maybe that's me being overly optimistic in August, but that's my honest opinion at this point in it, Gene.
Well, I hope you're right. I'll be rooting for that. And then maybe when the line gels, we can have longer 5 and 7 step drops later in the season.
For sure.
Thanks for your insight.
Yeah, no, thanks for calling, Gene. And that stuff becomes important later in the season too. Just to be clear, Cliff calling around an offensive line he doesn't fully trust does come with limitations. That's not like everything's fine, because it takes stuff out of your playbook. And one thing that I would like to see over the course of this season is Cliff continue to evolve the playbook in a way that he hasn't done in previous stops, but that I think he's fully capable of, and the fact that that is his whole entire job will lead to. And so, yes, when, if you can get by with a very simple offense early on and then add layers of complexity once defenses start to figure you out a little bit, that's an easy way to change the calculation for a defense. Oh, you want to dedicate all these resources to X? Turns out we've had Y in our back pocket all along. Voila, there you go. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980 is the telephone number, the Team 980 listener line for our Vibe Check Tuesday. Let's go to Kenny in Charlotte. Kenny, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hoffman, always a pleasure, man. How you doing?
I'm good, Kenny. How are you? Thanks for calling in, bro.
I'm doing good, man. The vibes are good, man. Vibes are really, really good. I'm glad that, JD5 is finally, or officially named the starting quarterback, which we always knew that he was. But one of the things that excites me, and gives me good vibes is the vibe that's in the locker room. And when I say that, I really mean, I think when DQ talks about competition, that it's authentic. It's not the Ron Rivera second guessing. Is it really competition or not? As an elementary school teacher, man, I can tell you, and having children of my own, people hate favoritism. You know what I mean? It goes back to sibling rivalries and, why'd you give him, 5 fries and you only gave me 3, or you gave him, 2 pieces of chicken and you only gave me 1. You know what I mean? It builds resentment, and low key in times of despair when you really need your squad to band together. Those little things can create division. And so I really believe Dan Quinn when he said, Jayden was going to be in competition, not necessarily competition as it pertains to his talent and his ability to be QB1, but to earn the respect of the locker room and say, you know what, when I name him quarterback, it's not going to be any side eyes or people like, well, is he going to do this with all of us, or he's just going to play favorites, or whatever the case may be. So, I really, really believe DQ has changed the culture amongst the players and not just the aesthetics of the organization itself. So I just wanted to see what you thought about that.
Kenny, I love that point in that call because I think, I don't know if we played this soundbite yesterday, if you maybe heard it, if you listened to the full press conference. If you are, Kenny, you're a sicko, but that's fine. We love our Commanders fan sickos around here. That's why we have jobs. But Dan talked about late in the press conference that he envisions this moment. And this is like obviously something that doesn't happen often in the NFL. But 10 years down the line, because most coaches don't last in a single place 10 years. And if Dan Quinn's still here in 10 years, that means he's done some stuff tremendously right. And probably chief amongst them was that he and Adam Peters decided Jayden Daniels was the right quarterback. But he envisioned this moment 10 years down the line where he walks into a meeting room and there's a competition going. And he's like, hey, cornerback 1, linebacker, whatever the thing is, you earned it. And by the way, we've been doing this since we made Jayden earn it back in the day. And like I talked about yesterday, this wasn't like, yes, there was a competition, but at the same time, yes, it was inevitable Jayden was going to win because he's better. And like that, those two things can both be true. You can have a competition and have the better person win it. And I think that's what happened here. And to your point, in the locker room, it prevents all the side eyes. It prevents, he was just given, he never had to prove it. Every single person in the Commanders organization, including Jayden Daniels and including Marcus Mariota, knows that Jayden Daniels is a better quarterback. And I think it speaks well of Marcus that he's fine with that. And it's a testament to Jayden, his talent, and the coaches, and by the way, the people around him, including Marcus, to get it to the point that it's this obvious this soon. I think it's a great point.
100%. One last thing, man. Another thing that I'm noticing, and I'm sure you can see it too, is that when you hear people like Terry McLaurin talk about how things are unfolding in practice, it's not BS when you see it in the game. One of my favorite throws was that short throw to Terry on the sideline, and he led him outside towards the sideline where when he caught the ball, it allowed him to get more yards. And I think he gained like an extra 17 yards. When you hear that in the interviews and then you see it in the game, that's that authenticity that's giving me the good vibe right now because I really believe in the product now.
Yeah, Kenny, thanks for the call, man. I appreciate that call a lot. Call back anytime. And I agree also with the authenticity point. And Anthony, this is something that I think we've talked about basically since Peters, but especially since Quinn got here. I mean, I like to think my BS meter's pretty high. I've been doing this a while. Like, I think it's a skill that actually helps you a lot as a journalist. And, like, with people in general, I think we call the segment the vibe check, right? I think I'm pretty good as a skill set of vibe checking people when I meet them. Dan Quinn's a real deal. And obviously I'd heard a lot of stuff from people like Logan and, we had KJ Wright on the show and just everybody around the whole league is like, Dan Quinn's the best. But I've been told that about other people, including, by the way, Ron Rivera before. And I'm sorry to, take an extra smack at Ron here, but like the second I met Ron Rivera, I was like, something's off here. Don't know. Don't like it. Vibes are bad. I'd heard enough good stuff that I was like, I'm going to give it a chance. The introductory press conference is not exactly the best place to meet someone and get to know them, etc. But over the course of the years, I never really had anything that changed on that, where I was just like, it's not that Ron was like a bad human being, just that, the pursuit of storylines and versus, or headlines versus storylines, the pursuit of the narrative versus the substance, sniff that one out pretty quick. With Quinn, there is an authenticity and a realness to him that I think he genuinely believes all the stuff that he says. Sometimes you have to go through some motions as a coach, and, it's not lying, but you have to say certain things because you want to hide certain information. But I think he genuinely gives us as much as he can. I think if you were to ask him a more pointed question on certain subjects where he doesn't, especially once we get into the season, doesn't want to tell you, he'll just be like, I can't tell you that. I just think there's an honesty to him. And when that is consistent with both the media and the players, then I think that resonates really well with the players, which is more important to winning than the media side of it. But if you're a coach saying one thing to the media and something different to the players, that is a very specific skill set that Belichick had. Belichick would be like, I'm doing this on purpose, and players would know. I don't think a lot of coaches think they can play that game. Most of them can't. And you're better off just being honest at all times, living in reality with authenticity at all times. And I think Dan Quinn does that really, really, really well.
Yeah, they do. And I think this goes back to, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn sort of kind of during the combine period where they talked about what was the most valuable thing when they're evaluating a talent in the combine. And it's more so just getting to know the person, because that's where a lot of teams go wrong. And I think you can't necessarily be looking for that and not also give off that in your other interactions with your players. So I think that they've just done a good job of being consistent on that front. And as you said, Dan Quinn, throughout from the time he first got here to now, he's been, completely honest and straightforward to everybody. And, we knew he was going to get to we knew Jayden Daniels was eventually going to be the starter, and he let us know, but he also said it's a process, and everything he said, he's lived up to it and, followed through with it. So this is a guy that, is a man of his word, and, it's very evident.
I think Peters is as well. I just think they approach it differently too. And I'm glad for the media's sake that DQ's the head coach, because I think DQ's is a little more outgoing. I think Peters is by nature more reserved. And the work he does, I think, calls for that. That's not a criticism in any way. In some ways, it's a compliment. It's Peters has the ability to tell you everything he can and know that the line on scouting and the line on player stuff is a lot more, you have to slide it towards hiding stuff more than perhaps some of the decisions that Dan Quinn makes, because the roster's already built and he's just deciding how it's going to be ordered. Now, when it comes to talking about game plans and attacking opponents and things, Dan's obviously got to be reserved there, and I think he more than knows that. But I just think it's been interesting to watch the two men operate in their own way, kind of valuing the same things on a principle level while going about it authentic to their own personalities. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Wrapping up the hour next with your phone calls on a Vibe Check Tuesday, 301-230-0980, before Mike Jones joins us at the top of the hour. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up, 5 o'clock, Mike Jones from The Athletic, our old friend, our old pal, joins us to talk about all the comings and goings in the NFL. Lots of news from lots of places, so we'll dive into it all with Mike coming up at the top of the hour. We're brought to you by Floor & Decor. Unbeatable prices, unmatched in-stock selection. Floor & Decor has more styles of laminate, vinyl, tile, wood, and stone for anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday, and we're taking your calls at 301-230-0980 with your thoughts on Jayden Daniels being named the starting quarterback of your Washington Commanders. Let's go to Dontel. Dontel, thanks for holding through the break. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Hoff, thanks for taking my call, buddy. It's been a long time.
You got it.
Now, if we could date back, I don't know if you remember or not, when I said that if we didn't draft Daniels number 2, that I was going to throw all my Commander stuff away and get my Ravens gear out. So I don't have to do that now because we got him. But,
wait, hold on. Did you already have the Ravens? Did you already have the Ravens gear, or would you have to go buy some Ravens gear?
Oh, no, I got some Ravens gear. I'm from Maryland. I got a little bit of Ravens gear. I just never wear it.
Okay. All right. I think some people will probably have some. We could do a whole hour of radio on that, Dontel, but we'll just let you slide on it and keep rolling. What else? What you got on Daniels now?
Well, it's not actually Daniels, man. I was hoping that they did things to make him succeed in year 1 because I keep hearing about this being a bust or – having the potential to be a bust or not. But to make him successful, they had an opportunity. We need a T. Higgins. We need a Brandon Ayuk type of player. And we had a chance to get both of them if we just give up something. We can't just keep everything we have and not make this kid, give him something to work with because our receiving core, we're not updating that any. And Terry McLaurin can't be your number 1 guy. He just can't be. That's just the way I feel about it. What do you think about that?
I think that I trust Adam Peters' feelings slightly more than yours, Dontel. I mean, you got Ravens gear in your closet. Wait, what are we doing? What are we doing here? No, in all seriousness, though, I think I understand your point. Here would be my counter, and I think this is actually where I side, not just playing devil's advocate. You can't build an entire football team from scratch, which is essentially what they were starting from, in one offseason. And part of being smart and judicious as a general manager in the NFL is managing your assets well. And part of the problem for Adam Peters, because the last staff was very bad at picking players, yes, but they were worse at coaching them, is he has to figure out what value do his assets actually have. Is Jahan Dotson good at football? Is Terry McLaurin a number 1 wide receiver? Is Jamin Davis good at linebacker or defensive end? Can they make him good at defensive end? Is Emmanuel Forbes an NFL player? Like, these were all questions with their last, 4 or 3 first-round picks, plus a guy like Terry to figure that out, to stick with the wide receiver position. And because they didn't know that, they don't know the value of their own assets, they don't actually know what they need yet. And they certainly didn't during the offseason. They hadn't had any practices yet. And I think it is worth whatever downside comes with not having as good of players this year, it is worth that downside to find out what you have, and thus you can more accurately fill what you need moving forward. Because needing a number 1 or determining that Terry actually is a true legitimate one changes your calculation next year. Figuring out if Jahan is useful, useless, an actual hidden gem of a star, like, they didn't know that coming in, and that changes what you're going to do. So could they have just done a more sure thing potentially and taken some long-term flexibility out by giving T. Higgins or Brandon Ayuk a ton of money and trading draft capital? Yes, but you might have the chance to acquire either one of those guys next year and have a much better idea of whether or not they actually fit what you're building and what you actually have in-house and what you're replacing or adding to. I think that's worth it. What do you think about that?
I agree with you 100% on what you just said about all that. And if they're going to go that route, what I was hoping was then they start Mariota then just to see what we have. Because I don't want Daniels going out there with nothing.
But I don't think he's going out there with nothing. Like, that's the thing. He's not going out there with nothing. Like Terry is.
I like Terry.
He's
Don't get
really
me wrong,
good.
I like Terry.
Zach Ertz is
Yes,
still
he is.
effective.
I really do.
And the thing is, like, Jayden is way better than Marcus. So Jayden's good enough right now to gain experience, even if it's not going to lead you to a Super Bowl. But the experience he gains now can help you to a Super Bowl in the future. It's not like the dude's going to go out there and David Carr it, where he's surrounded by so little and he's not ready that he winds up getting ruined by bad habits. Like, Jayden's good enough now that he is his own safety flotation device. I think sitting him is, if you thought that when they drafted him, I totally get it. Seeing how this has played out, I think that's being way too wedded to an opinion you had in April.
I do love Terry, though, but I don't like Doxson. I don't. So I just think Terry's the only one that we have. And then we lost our tight end. We lost Thomas and whoever else. I don't even know who our tight end is to this point now.
Zach Ertz, who might be going to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, Zach Ertz. Oh, he's starting, huh?
Yeah.
I thought we'd have somebody a little bit younger than that coming in with us.
Well, I mean, Ben Sinnott got drafted, and he looks like he could be pretty good immediately. So, yeah.
Okay.
You have paid attention, Dontel, since April, right? You didn't just go on a bender after they drafted Daniels, because there's a lot of stuff here that we're okay. I'm just.
But I was hoping they went and got Higgins, man. I really love T. Higgins. We just hadn't had anything like that for a while, but I do appreciate you taking my call.
we got to run. I think you should draft T. Higgins in fantasy. Thanks for calling. All right, that's Dontel, everybody. Anthony, how many people in your life do you know that have Ravens and Commanders gear?
I don't think I know one.
We know Dontel.
Oh, well, yeah, Dontel.
We know Dontel now.
I guess he has the best of both worlds.
I mean, he's ready. He's ready to jump ship. Look, if you're a child and you've grown up in this area in the last 20 years, and you have and you could be like, my dad seems miserable every Sunday, and my friends who wear purple, they seem happy. Dad, I'm gonna wear purple. I get it. To be a grown adult and have both teams, like, even if you kind of root for both teams because you live in Maryland, I get it. To go as far as to investing financially in both
you gotta pick one.
gear, that's a wacky bit.
Yeah. I think you just gotta pick one.
Sports radio, baby. You're home for wacky bits. All right, when we get back, Mike Jones, serious journalist, joins us here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube if you like at the Team 980. And right now it is time at 5 o'clock for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Today, it is our pleasure to welcome back to the show senior NFL writer for The Athletic, good pal, Mike Jones. That's how you know it's football season. Mike Jones is back on the show. Mike, what's up, dude? How are you?
What's up, Craig? How you doing, man? World traveler?
Yeah, I'm back, and I'm so happy about it, Mike. I was in Paris 2 weeks ago.
I was jealous. I
Yeah.
was jealous. I saw the pics. I was jealous, man.
It was a good trip. And the thing is, like, I know I had to come back home and work and all that kind of stuff. They had to end the Olympics too, Mike. They couldn't at least give me something to watch on TV at night. Like, what are we doing here?
I know. But hey, we're almost there. We're almost out of this wilderness and back to football season.
That is true. And for some teams, it seemed like a nice, smooth ride. For once around here, it feels like it's been a pretty smooth ride through training camp. But the team that I don't know, if they were having a regular, nice, smooth ride, it might pick them to win the Super Bowl. They were in it last year. Like, how off are the vibes? I hate to just do a vibes question, but I have to start here with San Francisco, with Trent, with the Ayuk situation, just so much stuff unsettled. They've had a couple guys go down hurt as well. Like, are they strong enough out there to get it back on the tracks, and are this all going to be a distant memory that we'll laugh about when they're playing in the Super Bowl again? Or does this have a legitimate chance to derail their season before all these things derail their season before it starts?
Well, you know the Super Bowl hangover is real. The team that loses in the Super Bowl traditionally has a very hard time even making it back to the playoffs. And, you know, you got all this stuff flying around with the 49ers, I'm not saying they're going to have a hard time making the playoffs, but this is definitely not the vibes and the feel and the work you were hoping to get in to recalibrate and make another run at this thing. If they wind up getting back to the negotiation table within the next 2 weeks and getting Brandon Ayuk taken care of and getting Trent Williams taken care of, they still could struggle a little bit out the gates just because they've been out of sync. But then you would have to think that, okay, down the stretch of the season, they'll peak at the right time. But again, it's hard, man. It seems like it shouldn't be that complicated, but we saw it happen with the Eagles last year. They lost narrowly. They even started the year off strong, and then down the stretch of the season, they really kind of fizzled. And so we'll see with the 49ers. I don't feel as great about them as I thought I would have, now that they've had all this stuff kind of still floating around in training camp. I thought they were going to get the Trent thing resolved pretty quickly. And then when the Brandon Ayuk trade to Pittsburgh didn't go down a couple weeks ago, I thought that, okay, they're going to get it. But we're still waiting. So we'll see.
One of the, just natural things that happens when a team is successful is you peel away pieces. And Adam Peters pushed away people trying to poach him out of San Francisco for a long time before coming here. And I'm just curious whether it's Adam, whether it's some of the coaches that have gone, as you talk to people around the league and they kind of look from the outside in, or anybody you talk to on the inside in San Francisco, are there some of these pieces, and Adam would certainly be a big one that is of more interest, of course, here because this is where he came, but are some of these pieces that are no longer around part of the reason they haven't been able to get some of this stuff done and things feel off kilter there?
I have not gotten that sense in talking to people that that's why they haven't gotten some of these deals done. A lot of people I talk to still have a lot of confidence that, yes, they lost Rand 2 years ago. They lost Adam Peters this year. They still have a lot of confidence in John Lynch and the scouting department and Kyle Shanahan and the way that they work in lockstep and their coaching staff and the scouting staff, how aligned they are there. Now this is something, financially they got to get resolved. But as far as a talent acquisition standpoint, I don't think that they're going to start suffering. They've got a good operation there. They're able to hit on late round picks, mid round picks. And so, if they can get these two things, again, they might struggle a little bit just to get in sync, but nobody feels like from what I've talked to, nobody feels like this thing is about to crumble for the 49ers.
Yeah, they still have arguably the best coach in the league. They're super talented, though. There's a part of me that just says, they'll be fine. But then, as you said, the Super Bowl hangover, we'll see.
Yeah.
Mike Jones, senior NFL writer for The Athletic, with us here on the Hoffman Show, going around talking about some of the top stories around the NFL. All of a sudden, Caleb Williams looks good. Expected that. Jayden looking good here. I think we kind of expected that on some level. Bo Nix looks like he's really, really solid out in Denver, yet Sean Payton not ready to name him the starter. What's the holdup there, and do we expect that Nix ultimately will, or does Payton have kind of some, whether it's, when I say ulterior motive, I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. I just mean, like, does he have a different plan for how things go this year and with Nix long term?
I mean, I think he wants him just to continue working, continue to try to make him earn it. But look, the thing is, yes, he's looked good, and so have Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels. But you also have to remember that, look, none of these defensive coordinators are game planning for these guys. Nobody is dissecting their film. We could see some of these guys come out, and start off really hot, and then, after 3-4 weeks of game film and defenses figuring out their tendencies, then they start to struggle a little bit. I think Caleb Williams is the real deal. Some of the things we're seeing out of Jayden Daniels, the accuracy, the quick release, being able to have a good feel for the game, making changes at the line, elusiveness, those are all great things. Bo Nix, we'll see with that offense of Sean Payton's, where he likes to throw the ball a lot, and he likes it on timing and accuracy. And so I don't know. I kind of feel like once the regular season gets here, that Bo might take some lumps there, and that's okay. I mean, he's a rookie. That's supposed to happen. So we'll see. It's a process. It's unfortunate what happened with J.J. McCarthy, because I felt like he might have had a chance, in Minnesota. So all these rookie quarterbacks, it's going to be intriguing to see how things unfold for them. But the top two right here, I from what we've seen, I think that, they should be pretty good. Doesn't mean there won't be, some rough patches here and there, but I'm not as sold on Bo Nix yet.
The other rookie quarterback that we didn't mention, first rounder, is Michael Penix Jr. I'll just ask this version of the question, Mike. What the hell are the Falcons doing? Because he's not going to start and he's not going to play in the preseason games. What are they doing with Michael Penix?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people wonder, what are they doing? You give Kirk Cousins, $180 million with $100 million of it guaranteed. They've said they're hoping that they don't have to play Michael Penix Jr. for, a few years. And they hope that this Kirk Cousins move pays out. I think that, look, if Kirk is healthy, then they do have a chance to contend for their division. I just don't get, look, you could have added a first-round piece that could have helped you win right now. But I guess if you got a guy who's, over 35 and he's coming off an Achilles, you want to make sure that you're protected. We'll see. But the way they're handling it, it's kind of, peculiar. And it makes you wonder, okay, is something going on here? Are they going to try to find ways to sprinkle it in here and there? I don't know. It's, again, rather intriguing, something that I can't quite get a feel for. People I talk to in the league can't quite get a feel for it either.
So I guess this also does, though, beg like a larger question in some attempt at fairness to the Falcons, for whatever that's worth, of how valuable these games are in the first place. And you mentioned it in talking about Nix that, okay, yeah, he's doing great right now, but what happens when the game plans begin? This is obviously right. the I think, nervousness that anybody that's not just overridden with giddiness about Daniels is having here, and same thing with Caleb in Chicago, because we just don't know yet. How has the preseason and how teams treat it changed in your time covering the league, and especially in the last couple of years, as a lot more coaches are not playing guys because they just don't see the value in it, even compared to something like a joint practice? Yeah,
well, I mean, they know, and there's some coaches like D'Amico Ryans who's like, I want my guys getting reps. And even, Mahomes was out there playing. So if there's anybody who doesn't need reps, it's Patrick Mahomes, but he's out there, playing and throwing behind the back passes in the preseason. But a lot of coaches do feel like, look, the joint practices give us the opportunity to get the game type reps in a more controlled environment, and we can stage the scenarios like, hey, we want to work on our red zone. Hey, we want to work on our third downs. We want to work on our goal line. And they can rep that out again and again, which is good. It does make it difficult to really get a feel for things because remember, we were, coming up, that first preseason game, they'd play maybe, a series or so. The second one, they'd play a quarter. Third preseason game was the game I always got excited for because it was like, okay, they're going to play a half maybe into the third quarter, and this is how we're really going to see what the regular season might look like. Well, now, 3/4 of these guys aren't playing. I mean, I even had checked, Blake Corum is a rookie running back, and the Rams haven't used him really in the preseason. I was like, what's the deal? No, he's still firmly in their plans. He's not hurt. They plan on using him a lot during the regular season. And so it's like, okay, it's just the way a lot of these coaches are choosing to go about it. And it's hard to gauge and predict based on what you're seeing. But, they have to have the preseason games, and they'll use it, I guess, for the guys who are in that range of the 60th to the 90th guys on the roster to get the reps and kind of battle for jobs for the most part.
I think that we should start a petition, Mike, that if coaches are not going to play guys in the preseason, they must join the telecast like McVay does. That if you're going to deprive us of player entertainment, you must be on the headset giving us live commentary.
That would be fantastic. I agree with you right there.
It's only fair. And Belichick has to come out of retirement and participate. These are I don't make the rules, Mike. I just suggest them. Mike Jones, senior NFL writer for The Athletic, covers the whole league for them, does such a great job finding great stories all year long, so make sure that you check his work out in The Athletic. Last thing I'll ask you, Mike, is the impressions of what you're hearing. You always get a great feel for what's happening in Washington because people know that you cover this team for a long time, locally here for the Post. But with the new regime, with the changeover, and with what seems like a lot of positivity around Jayden Daniels in league circles, what are you hearing when the Commanders come up in terms of kind of just what they're building here, but also how good they could be even this year?
Yeah, that they're building and they're getting, they've got the adults running the operation now, and they've got some good pieces in place. But the thing is that, look, it's still they're still missing a couple pieces. There's questions, along their offensive line, questions, pass rusher, questions in the secondary. And so it is a process. You're hoping that you're going to see some positivity. Yes. Could they pull a Houston and surprise and make a run in the playoffs? It's possible, but it is something that I think that, you got to be patient and expect that more likely than not, they'll be interesting and we'll see improvement down the stretch of the season. But this is something that it could take, they're probably a year away from really being serious contenders.
Mike Jones, everybody. Read his work in The Athletic on Twitter @ByMikeJones. Mike, always great to chat and look forward to doing it a lot more during the season.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. I'll see you.
Absolutely. That's Mike Jones, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, we'll cross or what? I don't know why I can't say dot I's and cross T's the last week, Anthony. What? It's not that hard. Tie up loose ends. That's I think what I was going for.
That's a simplistic term for what you are trying to get at.
Yeah. Oh my God. I speak for a living. They pay me for this. Let's go to commercial break before they have second thoughts. Coming up at 5:30, the comments by Tua Tagovailoa about Brian Flores hit hard. They hit Brian Flores hard. He responded today, but man, the story that Tua told to Dan Le Batard about how Flores used to coach him, it really hit me hard and something I want to talk about. And it's something that actually I think has relevance with Dan Quinn and the way he coaches. And hearing Dan speak after the game Saturday night let me know everything I need to know about Dan and how he feels about the idea of what it means to be a tough coach. So we will get to that and talk about it coming up next. But, Anthony, wrapping up some of the loose ends. See, I can do it. Dotting the I's, crossing the T's, tying the loose ends, etc. From our conversation with Mike Jones. I think that with Sean Payton in Denver, we are in a bit of the silly season for quarterback competition stuff. Like, I think it's been pretty clear that Bo Nix has been their guy, but maybe he's, like, to Mike's point, if Payton knows that Nix hasn't actually seen a lot yet, and maybe he's struggling at practice, which is not what has necessarily been reported, but, like, Payton knows what he's looking for, then I could see delaying. I think at this point, like, you're starting to really get ready for the regular season. And the other thing that I think is interesting about this time of year, I'd actually be curious to talk to a guy like Z about this, if he just wants to, if he's bored and wants to call in the middle of training camp, because there's no, those guys don't really work that hard during this time of year. But, like, for a guy, if you're, Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, whatever here, or Terry, or, even to an extent, a guy like Jahan, a veteran who is definitely making the team, right? Or if you're Zaire Franklin in Indy, like, you spend this entire training camp, like, getting in shape, getting your mind right, getting the installs, doing so much work. And because there's no longer a fourth preseason game, there is so freaking long into the season. Like, it feels like we've been in training camp forever. I took a 10-day vacation, and we still have a month to go. Like, it is August 20th. The first games are, like, the 14th, I think is the Sunday.
Yes.
So.
Or is it the 8th?
The 11th is on a Wednesday, and that's week 1.
Yes.
So Thursday would be the 12th. Friday would be the 13th. I guess it would be the 15th.
I'm pretty sure it's the 8th. I think the first game is September 5th, which is a Thursday.
That would be better. That would be much better. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
My trip to Indy's going into week 2?
Yeah, because Labor Day is next weekend, which probably throws you off. That's probably why.
No, going to France threw me off, Anthony.
Well, that too.
But still, okay, my point still stands, though. It's like, okay, the first game, Ravens-Chiefs, is September 5th. That is 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Dang.
Like, we still have a long way to go until football. So for most teams, we're talking about, like 17, 18 days until they play. Sunday, September 8th. Yeah, you're right. Oh, hey, that's one less week that I had. Yeah. But still, like, I'm so curious because, and the point I was going to make, which is, again, still relevant, even if it's less severe, is you have this ramp up. And then you get to the top of the ramp and you're like, okay, let me go back down. Oh, nope, I got to play. And, like, that lack of, it used to be like you kind of had a bye week, and now you have almost 2 weeks because next week, after you make the cut to 53, you have, like, a week off, and then you're in week 1, right? So it's not like you make the cut to 53 coming up on Monday, and then the weekend coming is you play a game.
Yeah.
You cut to 53, you have a week that's kind of your bye week, and then you come back, and then you're into a game week. And in that way, it's kind of like a bye week because coming off the bye, you don't have a game to review, etc. But you've already had it this week. Like, this week is the weird week. And I'm so curious how different teams handle it. And if you're a team like Denver, like we were talking about with Mike, trying to make a quarterback decision, how much of this week is about trying to make that, or have you already actually secretly made it and you're just not telling anybody? How much do you spend getting ready for the game? How much do you spend getting ready for week one? Because I think what a lot of teams actually do, Anthony, is they try to split it. So they have they spend the practice like tomorrow and Thursday. They'll practice like game specific for week one stuff, and their starters will be getting a lot of reps, and they'll kind of go through that rhythm. And they actually, Dan Quinn said they have 2 more installs. So for them, it's actually training camp style, but it's more focused on the starters. And then if you're a down roster guy and you're fighting like hell for your roster spot, you take the reps all you can, you practice on Friday, and then it's all on the game that you haven't really practiced for on Sunday. It's a weird, this is the point, Anthony. It's all my bad math, my inability to read a calendar, etc. It's a weird week. It's a weird week in the NFL.
No, it definitely is a weird week. I think the Broncos situation is maybe a little bit different than ours just because the QB competition sort of kind of might be closer than ours was. I think Jayden just outperformed Marcus Mariota by, a ton. And also it didn't help that, Marcus ended up getting hurt. But out there you got Stidham playing okay, putting up points. You got Knicks putting up points. So I think they may be still just, in the midst of, still competition.
Yeah, but I think you also have to make a decision as a coach. Like, is that what you want to use this week? Well, just as a coach, like almost in July, you're like, when do we want to have this done? Because you can put an artificial deadline on it because you have to know, like, you have to decide what you want to use this week for.
Yeah.
And then what do you want to use next week for? Next week, is it like, oh, no, we're going to ramp back up? Like, I think the way I would do it is different than the way the Commanders are doing it. I'd be very curious to talk to coaches. So this is me spitballing recklessly as opposed to having spent immense time on this. Could easily be convinced to change my mind. But I feel like I would spend this week getting my backups, my down roster guys, ready for my last preseason game. I kind of give my starters a lighter week. Next week, when I don't have any of those guys because we cut all of them, I'm going to try to have a ramp-up week, and then week one, I'm trying to have as normal of a week as possible.
Yeah.
So,
and we have the luxury now, too, though, to do that. So
yeah. But it feels like that's not exactly what they do. I mean, on some level, because it's not like the backups are getting a ton of reps next week because there's no backups anymore.
Yeah.
You're 53. That's the weirdest practice of the year, by the way, if you're on the beat, because you're out there every day. You're used to 90 guys that you've had all spring, all summer.
And
there's
50.
one practice that it's 53 before the practice squad gets signed.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's not just it goes from 90 to like 65 or whatever the number is now, 63, 65. I think it's 10 or 12 on the practice squad. It goes literally 90 to 53. And that field, that group of men on that field looks small.
Man.
When they're out there on like the warm-up drills and stuff. It's weird.
It's
and then the next day, all the practice squad guys come because they've been signed. And then the day after that, different guys are there because other guys clear waivers and roster movement happens, and life in the NFL, baby.
Man.
Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. All right, we get back. Tua Tagovailoa did not have a good start with Brian Flores as his coach. He shared just how damaging it was with the Dan Le Batard show, and that led to a lot of discussion about what it means to coach someone hard. And I certainly have some thoughts on that. We'll get to them next on The Hoffman Show. every once in a while, a interview will make the rounds where someone says catches everyone, kind of whips them into line and says, hey, have you heard this yet? We should talk about this. This is important, or this is dramatic, or this is interesting. This is, all of those things. And what Tua Tagovailoa said to Dan Le Batard is one of those things, and the collective NFL world has come together with thoughts, and that includes the subject of Tua's comments, Brian Flores. It's a lot of conversations, and a lot of them are not new, but worth having in the context of Tagovailoa's comments. Of course, Tua, the quarterback of the Dolphins, drafted with the top 5 pick back in 2020. Flores was the coach, and he has really blossomed since Flores left, and Mike McDaniel has taken over. They have led one of the best offenses in football, especially last year since they brought in Tyreek Hill and drafted Jaylen Waddle. And, most of you listening know all of this. And so Dan Le Batard, of course, national host, great talk show host down in Miami, interviewed Tagovailoa and asked him what the difference was in being coached by Flores versus McDaniel.
Can you explain to us the difference in practical terms between having a coach who did believe in you the way that he did and the difference between that and what was happening with Flores?
Yeah. Well, to put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad, and you hear it more and more, you start to actually believe that. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, it's basically been, 2 years of training that out of not just me, but, a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year all the way till now.
Off the top, good on Tua for not being afraid to answer the question. And part of Tua being able to do that is a lack of fear. And that is clearly what he was being motivated by when Flores was there. I will also, before we go any further, give some credit to Brian Flores for addressing this head on some level today. I think he had multiple sets of comments. His initial statement was a little more reserved, just kind of said the bare minimum, but ultimately did say, like, hey, these words hurt a lot, but I've changed. And I hope he's telling the truth, because this is not a way to treat another person, nevertheless to coach them and get the best out of them. And I realize a lot of these arguments come down to some kind of moral case, and then people start screaming at each other about being snowflakes or being coddled and how soft millennials are, even though half the time that people are yelling about millennials, they're actually yelling about people who are Gen Z. And I'm also half the people yelling, I'm like, who do you think raised us? So there's a lot of like name calling, bickering, morality type of stuff to these arguments that I think gets away from the key point, or a key point, which is how we should ultimately have this argument, which is what's the most effective way to coach a human being? And there are mounds and mounds of research that tell you that what Brian Flores did to Tua Tagovailoa isn't the optimal way to do that. And it certainly isn't the best way to coach Tua Tagovailoa. I also think it's, it shouldn't go any further without saying it's not the same for everyone. Some people respond a little bit better to tough love. Some people respond a little bit better to encouragement. Some people are a little more fragile, and you have to be more careful with how you give them feedback. Some people can actually handle bluntness. Often, people don't know themselves in that way Because how often, there's no one out there that's like, hey, can you be really delicate and careful with me? I don't think I can handle you being blunt. And no, everyone's like, give it to me straight. Be blunt. Most people can't actually handle that. And that doesn't make them better or worse as people. It just means that if you are their boss, if you are their coach, if you are their partner, if you are whatever, you have to understand what the person across from you or the group of people that you are leading ultimately will respond to. And that is where I think this conversation becomes far more interesting, to see clearly Tua Tagovailoa responding far better to Mike McDaniels, empowering him, versus Brian Flores basically emasculating him. You're not good enough. You suck. That guy deserves it over you. And it's meant to, and to be clear, I don't think Flores does that out of malice, out of spite. I mean, maybe he wanted to draft someone else. And that was his way of being like, I'm going to ruin this kid to make a point that he sucks. And that would be pretty terrible by Brian Flores. But if we even give Flores the benefit of the doubt to say, hey, I'm doing this because I want to motivate him. I want him to feel like he's got to earn it. Well, look at the way Jayden Daniels had to earn it versus what Tua had to do to earn it, quote unquote. They're very different. And to me, toughness is not defined as how much of a hardo can you be? And if that's your definition of toughness, I guess fine, but one, we disagree. And two, I think the way that I would define toughness is going to get the best out of people on a much more consistent basis. And that's why coaches like Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and Dan Quinn and Mike McDaniel and a lot of coaches that have won a lot in this league that are having success with the current generation of players who are more informed, are more emotionally intelligent, are more a lot of things than previous generations. And we allow more space for those things, why they're having success. There's a book I'm reading right now. I've mentioned it quite a few times on the show. It's called Do Hard Things. It's by a guy named Steve Magnus, who is was a runner and turned run coach. He has coached multiple Olympians, very, very high achiever, very, 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 very talented coach. And he wrote this book on toughness, and one of the examples that he writes about early in the book is the Junction Boys and how the Junction Boys were actually a failure, that they're a myth, that the mythology of Bear Bryant, including the Junction Boys, actually doesn't accurately reflect the thing that ultimately made Bear Bryant good, which is getting to a better place with better resources and better players and coaching them differently than he did the Junction Boys. And that the little known thing about the Junction Boys, the group that Bear Bryant took at Texas A&M out to Junction, Texas and beat into the ground, is that they were a terrible football team that won, I believe it was one game. And almost everybody quit. They didn't develop toughness. They didn't weed anybody out. He was an ineffective coach. And I think it's fairly to say for that year, at the very least, a bad person. Magnus defines toughness as real toughness means processing stressors thoughtfully, deliberately, and with vulnerability rather than superficially and rigidly. And when we get back to the idea of what is effective as a coach, and we think about the way that Flores versus McDaniels, and again, I'm not bringing this up to beat up on Flores in part because Flores owned this and said he has evolved in some way. And I have to think, working for a coach like Kevin O'Connell, that he absolutely has. It's just the example that we're using in the moment. That if we think about being effective, not morally right, not nice, not anything that is superficial, what does it mean to ultimately be effective? You have to connect with someone and you have to understand them in a way that you can help them fix the problems that they're having to perform better at their job. And that's why this from Dan Quinn really stuck out to me after Sunday night's game when he was asked about going up to Riley Patterson, who missed 2 kicks, going up to Kaz Allen, who fumbled, and what he had to say to them and why it was important for him to be one of the first voices, if not the first voice, in their ear.
I think belief is a big deal for a player. And sometimes not talking to somebody can show you don't have belief. And by ignoring somebody or just not showing them that. And so I think the best of the best players can have a lot of confidence and are still going to have some times where it fails and doesn't go good. And so in those moments, you want to remind them of things, this is how to create it and correct it, because if you keep hanging on to that into the next play or the next down, it could certainly affect you. So it was just really about resetting and making sure, hey, this is the next moment, the next time, and go for it. But at the end, those are the ones that keep you up at night, as a ball player and as a coach. And we want to make sure we can get them corrected and find out why, a missed kick happened, or my approach too close to the ball, or how did it get knocked out. And sometimes you got to give the credit to the other guys. I didn't see the one exactly on Kaz yet, but I know the competitor's right.
Toughness and coaching this way and this style, the McDaniel versus the Flores, if we use the Tua example, isn't about just telling guys that they're great, everything's perfect. Don't worry about fumbling the ball, Kaz. It's going to him and saying, hey, I know we can be better than this. I know you can be better than this. And I know that, and I see where we can make that improvement, or we're going to figure it out together, and we're going to get you there. Because who would you rather play for? Someone that tells you that you suck, or someone who sees greatness within you and is going to help you reach it? What is more inspiring? What's going to get you out of bed in the morning? And ultimately, that's why I just don't understand the yelling, screaming, fake toughness mantra that proliferates a lot of sports. And it's even worse, and this is a whole other conversation at the youth levels. What are you getting about screaming at 8-year-olds? Like, Jesus. But it's not about making people feel good, except for the part that winning feels good, and it's going to help you win a lot more often. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. 6 o'clock, more on the Commanders' defense in the form of Take Command, and some more thoughts on Logan, who played for Dan Quinn, on this very topic and those conversations he had with a guy like Riley Patterson and Kaz Allen. But coming up next, look back at everything else that happened this weekend in the world of sports. We spent a lot of time on football yesterday, so our weekend review on a Tuesday here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at 6 o'clock, Logan Paulson's breakdown of how the defense played, why he's not that concerned about Benjamin St-Juste giving up that touchdown, and why we're both encouraged what we see from Jamin Davis. Right now, though, the rest of the sporting weekend. And, hey, Anthony, the W's back.
It is indeed, man. And I've been seeing, a lot of spiciness on my TL, to be honest.
It's a spicy meatball.
Yes.
Started off, of course, last Thursday. Games throughout the weekend. The Mystics, unfortunately, dropped. They've done a lot of business with the Lynx lately. They played 2 games against them, and then they made a trade between the 2 teams today. So, man, Maisha Hines-Allen, last 2 games as a Mystic, lost to the Lynx. If you can't beat them, join them. Now she's a Lynx.
Yeah.
I'll miss Maisha, by the way. She was one of my favorite interviews from Media Day this past year. Sad that we didn't get her back on the show between then and now.
I've always liked her game, but for some reason, I viewed her game as more so like she'd make a great move, but the finish was just like always.
I'm not telling. Maisha is a big $1 million move, 10-cent finish, to use the taunting term from the playground on it. But I just as a person, I really really enjoyed Maisha. I think she's someone that if she ever puts it together, I know she's not a young player, but if she could just put something together, she could help. She's the kind of player that can help you win a playoff series.
Yeah.
So I totally understand why Minnesota.
She did help us win.
Yeah, for sure. So wishing Maisha all the best. The big game on Saturday was the Liberty and Aces, and just Vegas lost their offense in the second quarter. It was an 8-point quarter, and that was kind of that. I do think right now, I am biased as hell towards the Aces for obvious reasons. For those who don't know, one of my good friends plays for the team. But if I'm being objective right now, nobody tells said good friend, I think you have to say that the Liberty, based off of the 2024 season, are the title favorites. They've already clinched a playoff spot. They're by far and away number 1 in the league. Record-wise, they're consistently beating good teams. Now, when it comes down to it, if they have a rematch in the finals, am I going to pick the Aces? You bet, because I just trust them in a gut check moment to find a way to figure it out. But if I'm an odds maker, you have to say that the Liberty are the favorites right now.
What do you tell me? Well, what do you always ask me, Craig?
I ask you a lot of things, Anthony. You do leave a lot of questions
in
my life.
Who's the best player in the league?
Yeah, no, Asia Wilson.
Okay, just making sure.
And in a playoff series, you pick the team with the best player.
Yes.
No, that's totally fair. I think Sabrina's having a heck of a year.
She is. And Jonquil.
As well, she was not having a great Olympics by any stretch. I just think she's far more comfortable, obviously, with New York. Jonquil, that was a big thing last year. They couldn't really figure out how they all played together, and Jonquil was the one who suffered the most. And this year, boy, has Jonquil figured it out, and she's back to an MVP caliber. So it's been really fun to watch that team come together, and I think it'll make for hopefully a great finals rematch. Of course, Connecticut, Minnesota, some other teams are going to have some stuff to say about that. That's not the spicy meatball, though. The spicy meatball is that the Rookie of the Year race continues to be one heck of a race, and some players seem to still not be super psyched about Caitlin Clark's existence. Clark on Sunday dropped 23-9 as the Fever absolutely barnstormed Seattle in the fourth quarter, 33-17. Dude, when they are going offensively, when Indiana is, I don't know that there's a more potent force in the league. And I know how good New York is, and I know how good Connecticut is, and I know how good Vegas is. But, when they can get a couple of stops. Now, the reason that they're the 8 seed or the 7 seed, wherever they are, I haven't checked today. But the reason that they're a, back end of the playoffs team and back half of the league team is because their ability to get stops on a consistent basis, not great. But in those pockets where they do, and then they can get the ball and run, and CeCe's diamond, get ahead passes everywhere, and their shooters start to knock down, they are at, if you told me, hey, who's a team that's most likely to just drop a 40-point quarter this week, the answer is probably Indiana.
Yeah, Kelsey Mitchell. You got Lexi Hall, who's coming on strong.
She's playing great.
Man, I think she had 6 in that game. And then you got Caitlin Clark. It's just not fair. And I think it's the point that you're making, being able to get stops is going to take them a long way just because we know they can score. They have a lot of weapons offensively, and they were able to, build that through the draft. But now it's the other side of the ball they got to focus on. And once they get that figured out, they are going to be a force to be reckoned with because Caitlin not playing fair, man. She ain't playing.
If I'm them, I'm calling here. And I'm going, hey, Sykes is healthy, right?
Sykes. Ooh.
Like, I hate that because I would love to see Slim continue to play here. Obviously this is the official show of Slim fandom, being that it's hosted by a Syracuse guy, produced by a Syracuse guy, and Slim, well, we know where she went to school.
Yes.
Let's go Orange. But if you paired her with Clark in that backcourt, the defensive prowess that she brings,
man,
and because they don't have a stopper.
Nope. Lexi Hall is she supposed to be the stopper?
I think she is, and Lexi is a solid defensive player. She's not Slim.
Yeah.
Slim is Slim. There's one of her. Her, Alicia, a couple other players. Dejanay Carrington has been really good defensively this year on the perimeter. So there's a couple of players that can really be just on ball terrorists. Yeah. And I don't know that there's anyone better. There's a couple on the level maybe. I'm always going to put Alicia on that level. But Slim is as good as there is in the entire league.
Yeah.
And you add in her offensive prowess, she's not slowing down that team at all. So I think that if I'm Indiana, I'm willing to give up a first-round pick or whatever this team wants for someone like Brittany Sykes if Mike Tebow is willing to make that trade. The other, obviously contender for Rookie of the Year is Angel Reese, who continues to just put up mind-bending rebounding numbers.
Yeah.
She has 19 points and 20 rebounds in their loss to Phoenix on Sunday night. And again, Anthony, it's 10 offensive, 10 defensive. It's wild what she does. It is literally Angel Reese. I'm not saying that she deserves to win the Rookie of the Year. I think it's pretty clear at this point. What Clark is doing is unprecedented in a different way. I think it's driving winning more, all that. But Reese is doing something that is unprecedented and worthy of celebration, even if at times you're like, hey, can you make the shot instead of rebound your own? But she had 20 freaking rebounds.
Yeah, I think anybody that goes out and gets 20 rebounds, no matter how you do it, you're having a big impact on the game. And her teammates didn't necessarily help her out. She played hard all the way to the end. But yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting race. It's just two different, I guess.
And I'll give credit to Angel, who is like Caitlin now at this point, setting a new record seemingly every time she steps on the floor. And luckily for Caitlin, the last couple of games she's been able to address them after wins. Angel, more of a mixed bag, and I think she's just kind of over it.
Yeah.
And in a way that actually speaks very highly to her competitive character, to say, I'm done talking about records. I am here to win.
Yeah.
And I think there is also, it depends on the magnitude of the record, right? Some of the ones that she's broken are individual game type of stuff, versus Caitlin just broke the assist record of one of the W's all-time greats.
Yeah.
And so, Tina Peniciero, getting her, being able to salute her, that's a good move by Caitlin. If Angel breaks a Sylvia Fowles record, I'd hope she goes, Sylvia is amazing. One of the legends of our game. Salute to her. But, I'm also really just focused on wins. There's a way to do both. But I think they both actually handled the individual records that they've broken recently really well. And we'll see who ultimately, wins the battle for Rookie of the Year. I think that's going to be Clark. But they're also fighting for a playoff spot as they currently sit 7-8. Indiana now sitting in that 7 spot. Chicago at 8 with a 1.5 game deficit to Indiana for the final 2 spots in the playoffs. Atlanta surging here later in the year as well. They've won 2 in a row. They're the team chasing Chicago. Washington, they're at the bottom, and they're gonna play tonight. And you're gonna hear it right here on the Team 980. the Mystics playing the Storm at 7 p.m. All right, when we get back, Logan Paulson's thoughts on the Commanders' defensive performance against Miami and why he is excited about what he's seeing from Jamin Davis. hour of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. There you can also find our podcast if you miss any part of the show. And, of course, Take Command, the show I do twice weekly, soon to be 3 times weekly with Logan Paulson, back to our 3 per week cadence during the regular season. Excited for that. But preseason, we continue to try to make sense of what we're seeing on the field, in this case in Miami. Wanted to give you, if you missed it, a little review of the defense. We spent so much time yesterday talking about the offense, as well as some thoughts on the culture that Dan Quinn has established. So without further ado, this is your Take Command Tuesday here on the Hoffman Show. So defensively, most of the Finns starting wise doesn't play. Dorrance Armstrong, Frankie Louvu, kind of the exceptions there. You have the starting back end. But I thought one thing that was interesting, just as a starting point here, Logan, is, Louvu kind of plays that main linebacker role, which I thought was interesting, because if this was a real game and Bobby Wagner was for some reason unavailable, that's what I think they would do. Obviously, especially without Jordan McGee available, and we're hoping to find out Monday from Dan Quinn what McGee's status is moving forward. But I thought that was interesting that one of their best players is actually out there when they rest so many of the others, and he's in there kind of in a role where it's not expected for him to be, because I'd imagine if there's one linebacker on the field sometimes that will be Wagner. I guess it depends on the package. I don't know. What'd you make of Louvu being out there and his usage?
The guy, you know what I mean? I think Bobby Wagner obviously is Hall of Fame kind of guy, but I think maker right now in their careers, I think Louvu's probably the guy they want on the field more, because he can rush, he can line up as the Sam, he can line up as the Will, he can be on, he can be off the ball, he's a great blitzer, he's super physical. I think he's just more of a dynamic playmaker, and again, that's not a knock on Bobby. It's just he's 33, whatever he is. So it's just different. And I think that's kind of the way, just in terms of the way he's practiced, that's what I would expect too. And again, what their actual usage plan with Bobby, because he's taking vet days, he's joint practice, he's not doing this. He's on a different workload, which is totally to be expected. So healthy when they're both out there. I think it can still change, but I think as of right now, I think you probably prefer Louvu just because of because of his play style. We'll see. Maybe and again, the majority of the starting defensive reps, so it was about 12 plays, 15 plays, something like that. They had 2 linebackers on the field, right? The other guy was his name, number 32, Malik. Is that his name?
Michael Walker.
Michael Walker. Yeah, I think he's a hecker, man. He had an excellent.
He played
game.
a lot too. He was in there the entire. That dude had to keep his pads on at halftime. He played 40. I think it was 49 snaps.
Yeah, he played absolutely insane. But I do think if you're looking at linebacker usage, on the field the entire time, the first defense was out there, and then the next was Mike Sanderstall, and so I think that's probably, I would expect something very, very similar, but instead of Michael, you get Wagner. So I think that's kind of the usage, and the guy you want on the line of scrimmage, the guy you want blitzing is probably Louvu, and the guy in the more traditional linebacker roles is what I would say looking at that.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the linebackers, obviously on the part we predict who's going to make the team, but I do think they had a couple of rough plays, including the penalty, which is a vet. You're like, dude, come on. And the linebacker numbers are going to be interesting. The fact that Walker was out there first, I know they play slightly different positions, but that was something that caught my eye, and we'll talk more about it on Thursday. As far as the starters go, obviously St. Juste gives up the touchdown, and there's another big play down the sideline later in the third quarter, about 4 minutes Logan, and B. Mitch talked about on the broadcast technique there in terms of the hands and making sure that you get there in time. And I'm just kind of curious what you've seen, because you've talked about that on the show before too, of the way that they teach it and through the hands. Is this just, are those throws that you just sometimes, hey, there's not a whole lot you can do, you get beat? Is that, hey, they're still adjusting the technique, or was there a mistake made earlier in the down that's got them a half step behind, and that's the difference in the NFL? What do you make specifically of the St. Juste play, but it's almost a carbon copy in a different part of the field on that play? I think it was on the bad end of that, the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, I think with That's with St. Jude's. The only thing I would say, because I actually thought he was in pretty good relationship to the receiver, and I know people are like, "Oh, don't defend him. Oh, he's trash or whatever." But he's in good position. He played a pretty good game. You know what I'm saying? And as an offensive player, I say that's like one of the better throws I've seen on a fade in a long time. Like it's not a big looping arc. It's like up and down. It's on the part. It's in the bucket. Like the receiver has late hand. That ball is in a really good spot. The only thing I would say, and this is something you'd have to talk to Joe Witt Jr. about and the defensive backs coach, is like I would like him to get hands on the receiver earlier, because then it just disrupts it later. And I think St. Jude does a great job with the short area quickness. He does a great job on the turn. He's in good relationship. Like he's less than an arm's length away. And I think one way to help yourself out there would be to kind of press. And they've been working on that a little bit more. But again, I don't know based on the defensive call if that's what they're exactly looking for or if he's comfortable with that technique yet. So on that one, I say it's a good throw. You know, it's probably the best throw I've seen on that. Like I think a good juxtaposition is the Driscoll to Tinsley throw later for our offense, right? Where he feels a little bit late on the throw. It's a double move, so the timing is a little bit different. There's a little bit more, and the DB's able to rally, recover, and play through the hands to break it up. Like I think if you get a ball like that, I think St. Jude easily breaks it up and probably could even make a play on the ball. But that's not the throw you got. You got a throw from a guy in Tua Tagovailoa who's got paid a lot of money and showed, to my estimation, like I didn't know he had that kind of throw. So is definitely playing some good football and delivered an excellent ball. So I think, again, like I'm not making excuses for him, but I think that's a pretty challenging spot to be in a DB. The only thing I would question, and again, I don't have any insight on this, I'd have to talk to the defense. Do you want him to be more physical early in the down? Because that would disrupt that throw later. You know what I'm saying? It would disrupt the receiver. Because Tua's throwing that essentially off a quick game. You know, the gun. So
it's like 1-2 out.
Yeah,
it's
1-2 out.
It's a timing throw.
And so like it's a quick game-ish. So I think it is a quick game setup, right? And I think with that press coverage on the outside, because I think it was 4-1, probably had a hitch called versus him within 3 yards of the cushion. You're going to convert that to a fade. I think that's exactly what you got. This is in a bad spot. I think that throw is just tremendous. So
yeah, and I think I'm so curious to ask Joe Witt, be like, all right, good spot versus optimal spot. Like, can you be, because if you get that extra step, are you into his body? Can you drive him out of bounds a little bit? You know, can you potentially, if you realize what's happening, get your head around and make a play on the ball versus just play through the hands because you're in trail. But again, like if that's the coaching point of to be in trail and to be right on that back hip and then play through the hands, then maybe it's just a matter of execution. But that's a question for Joe Witt Jr. and Juice and that staff. So I just thought it was interesting because, you know, brought on the telecast. I know we've talked about it before, occasionally late playing through the hands. Yeah. But that does seem to be a case where, handshake, congratulations on a heck of a throw. All right. Let's see. What else do we got? The other big, I think, talking point defensively is obviously Jayden has the play late in the game. Yeah. And I had made a note, like Jayden rush plan. We got to talk about it. For some of the first snaps that he gets there, I feel like some of the started to show up where he is explosive off the ball. And like Jayden talked about this week, some tips and tricks that some of the coaches have given him to try to unlock why he's being asked to do this in the first place. That explosive nature, be able to use his length, use his size, use his twitch, and yet he would just launch himself right into the middle of the tackle, and you're like, that's what they want, not what you want. And then all of a sudden, boom, he has I think a good move on the play before the sack, and then all of a sudden he hits with a boom, 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 like move, gets to the quarterback, Rika. It's there. He shows some other great, it's like a swipe move later in the game where he's able to get the corner. And all of a sudden, here we are a month into this experience and some things are starting to come together. What'd you make of Jayden's day and how we are in the progression for him to be, a defensive end?
Yeah, I'm really happy for Jayden. I mean, he just, this is a tough thing to do about it. I've been very about my reservations about him making the switch, and he seems to have just handled it extremely well. And I think the fact that you see him showing up, like, he has a PU on a keeper, like where the quarterback out, he reads out of it and his speed to get there. The play before, it's a keeper, he runs the guy down at the sideline. Like, he's just doing a good job, like hustling. And I think that's the thing, is good things come to those who run, and he's been running the football. And I think as you better in terms of your pursuit, in terms of your angles, which he's done a great with, it buys you time as a rusher. It buys you time. So even on the sack force fumble, if I'm coaching him, I'm like, I don't really love your angle here, kind of your get off, but make it work. Good athlete. So I just think, it's not the most polished rusher I've ever seen, like, because he's athletic and he's started that feel you're describing. He's able to get some production on a sack, and that's Patrick Paul. Like, that's a guy that I had a pretty high grade on coming out. And he played really well in the first preseason game. He played really well outside of that one snap. So I think like that guy's going to be a tackle at some point. He's going to be starting for next year, when Armstrong retires. So like, that's not like just some slouch guy who's not playing football anymore. Right? So I think there's a lot of really positive things to this progression. It's nice to see the production starting to cut it. And I think production breeds confidence. And I think there's a significant chance, like a legitimate opportunity, like real, he's on the team, and maybe midway through progressing the way he's progressing, like contributing as a passer in those situations that Dan alluded to, the 2-minute and third and long situations.
Yeah, for sure. And I think question too, right? Like, at this point, we both are tuned on whether or not he's in this team from where we were, 2-3 weeks ago, where it's like, man, there's really, all due respect to Jamin. But I think at this point, he's so committed to it, and they're to him that he's going to be on the team. And then the question becomes, like, on game day, is he one of the active guys? Or is he a guy that they're like, no, we throw one if we know you're not close to where we hope you get to? Because I think they're not just hoping that he passes or whatever. Like, they're hoping that, he's the athlete that he is, that he can be really good at this. But that's going to take time. That's going to take reps. It's going to take, and especially at a position where if he's only playing a limited number, like, those are going to be hard to come by because he's not playing snap in, snap out. But at the same time, so many of those dudes that you want to rotate your guys on game day. So is he inactive or is he active and playing, and not just on special teams? So that's going to be interesting to watch. But I think what we've seen so far is pretty good. Yeah. That, if he's out there playing, it's like, you're not dead in the water with Jamin Davis. The athleticism puts a floor underneath him too. You see it on the play right before the sack. And I'm glad you brought that one up. The change of direction and like pursuit ability he has means that, and his will to do the work, to run, to hustle. Okay, it's a naked bootleg to your side. You get caught a little bit inside, pivot, and chase a guy down, and you force an incompletion. If that happens in a game, like, that's an excellent outcome. Yeah. And so his ability and willingness to just make himself as right as humanly possible, even if it's not pretty, even if it's not ideal, as he continues to bank these reps, I think gives him more that makes him playable. And so I'm excited to see what it is. And I don't think that we would have said that a month ago. I think we were both scared for him a little bit ago. And it speaks really well to him of how quickly he's made this to a level that feels playable in NFL regular season game, even if it's not close to optimal yet.
Yeah, and it's also kudos to the coaching staff, because like, that's tough to do, man. It's tough to take a guy who's playing linebacker, move to defensive end, and then for him be like, I'm going to say struggle with the transition early on, but trust your evaluation, trust what you see, trust your coaches, trust Ryan, and this is the result. I mean, it's pretty impressive, and again, like, the change last 3 weeks specifically has been, and I just think, man, in 3 more weeks, if he makes the team and he's playing, like, what's it going to look like? Like, he's going to be able to be that guy that comes in, you're like, this is a very lofty comparison, but you're Bryce Huff pass rush specialist that can give you some consistent pass rush juice and guys on first and second down. Like, it's a really interesting thing all of a sudden at that position. And I'm really excited for him, really happy for him that he was able to get that play. And you should have, I was standing right next to the bench when he got the sack, and they just were ecstatic for him. It just shows you, I think, it's respected and how they appreciate the transition, but also like the just change in culture and the support that this team has for each other is pretty cool. So,
yeah, I just think that this whole culture and atmosphere that we can close with this too. I don't know if you saw Dan's presser, but he was about, talking to Kaz Allen, talking to Anderson after their mistakes, the fumble for Kaz, which we'll talk more about Allen's spot on this roster, obviously, on Thursday. Riley Patterson, the kicker, has 2 misses. And you can see on the telecast, Dan talking to him and being productive, because he knows at the very least he needs him for the rest of this game. I think especially in Kaz's case, all due respect to Riley Patterson, like this is a guy that they hope to develop into a weapon for the long term, even if it takes a couple of years of practice squad. And so I think that the toughness, not, just yelling at dude in their finger or your finger in their face and looking tough because you're being hard on people the tools to succeed. And Dan talked to post game press conference of, hey, if we're going to ask you to do something, we're going to give you the tools to be correct. And so for Riley, it's, hey, was I a little too close on my approach? For Kaz, it was the ball tucked, in the right spot. Did I have the right pressure on the ball? Like, we're going to figure out why the mistake happened and we're going to correct it. And that is, by definition, according to actually a book I'm reading right now called Do Hard Things. The toughness is challenging people, but giving them the tools. And Dan is, any coach that I've covered and doing that, you've obviously experienced that as a player. But I think it then creates this atmosphere that is good for everybody and is supports a camaraderie and we're in this together. We're going to figure out our problems. And I think especially in a year they could lose a decent number of games because they're one for realistic. That could be on the table. Could do a lot better, but we'll see. Having that kind of atmosphere is really, really important. And Dan's ability to, in a spring, first part of this training camp in the summer, establish that is impressive to me.
Yeah, and I think he's the first guy that talks to Kaz Allen, after the fumble. He's the first guy that talks to him after his first carry fumble, just to kind of say their job. And, we talked about Kaz and kind of him switching from running back-ish. He got some carries at running back. And then I look at Dominique Hampton, and what they're doing with him and kind of the transition and the support that they've given him. And I actually thought he came out of that looking pretty good and pretty confident playing linebacker for this team. So and it's staff, it's trusting the culture that you're building. It's embodying that. It's the support of it. Like you're not always. It's not always sometimes it's the carrot, and I think it takes a special leader to understand when to do that. I think Dan has that, and I think again he's empowered his staff, and he's gathered a staff that also knows how to do that. Again, it's still early in the but I like those elements, and it's cool to see them show up in the preseason.
No doubt. On the Thursday show, we will do a 53-man roster projection. That's going to be really, really interesting. Numbers a couple of spots, some really interesting players to talk about, and we'll put our ad on and do our best on the Thursday. So make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button if you made it this far. You are sadistic or you actually liked it, so it's you're just being honest button, so that more people can find this podcast and check it out. Leave a comment if you like, and of course, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., subscribe, follow on your platform of choice. Until that Thursday show, see y'all on the radio 4 to 6 on the Team 980 for the Hoffman show, and Logan, of course, doing everything over with the Command Center show. He's got podcasts, he's got digital shows. He does whatever Fred Smoot says. It's a good time. All right, that's it. That's all for this edition of Take Command. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and listening. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command, which has a brand new home.
That's right. You can watch on YouTube at the Team 980.
You can also listen to episodes in the free Odyssey app, which is now enabled with Apple CarPlay. So we'll just, follow you around. Anthony, would you like to explain to the people why you're playing this song as a rejoin?
So basically, we're coming back from break, and
in the break. We weren't even coming back yet.
Oh yeah, in the break, and I'm thinking, we're about to be coming back from break fairly soon, so I'm running into the studio, and Craig sees me running. And
then you realized you had time. You kind of started to do like a running man in place bit.
I was also trying to see if you were going to notice that I was still running.
Unlike when I was, I just decided to pull an Anthony. Anthony sometimes will just come up to my prep studio and just stick his face in the window until I notice. And typically I notice pretty quickly because he's not that slick.
Yeah.
As to where I will sometimes come back. And to be clear, the window that he is peering through is like a small window in a door. We have a giant. How big do you think this thing is?
At least
like 8 feet by 8 feet.
Yeah,
something like that. 7 feet by 7 feet.
Maybe like an 80-inch.
Yeah, big, gigantic plexiglass, window between our two studios that we exist in during the show. And last week, I went up to the window and just stared at Anthony for long enough that he didn't turn around, and I just left. And I was like, all right, well, that's not fun. And then today I was there for like probably 15, 20 seconds before I like broke because I was laughing, and I tried to like make a hard face, and Anthony didn't look soon enough.
No.
But I did see you running, and then I got on the intercom system and went, and the bass keeps running, and that's how we landed.
Yeah.
Coming back from Black Eyed Peas. Or with the Black Eyed Peas. We would also like to wish everybody a happy National Radio Day. Hey! Hey! Happy birthday. Do you know why today is National Radio Day?
Because today is August 20th.
And what happened on August 20th some number of years ago?
It's a great question.
It was the first ever radio broadcast. That is thought to be why. There's also some, though, that maybe predate, going back to like the 19th century. This is all according to a quick Google search. But, well, we're going to go with the official story, and has been celebrated on August 20th since the 1990s, is that on this day, August 20th, 1920, so 100 and I think I put 124 years ago in the graphic. It's 104 years ago. We're going to change that on the YouTube stream. 104 years ago today was the first ever broadcast radio signal that was emitted. It was from a station in Detroit. So there you go. Happy National Radio Day, Anthony.
104 years ago.
104 years ago. Yes, I would like to replace that, which is now accurately reflected in the graphic.
There
if
it
you're
is.
watching on YouTube.
I'm currently watching on YouTube.
Okay. Well, there's probably a slight delay, so it'll be up shortly.
Okay. What was I about to ask? Oh, the broadcast. What was it a broadcast of? Was it a sports broadcast? Oh, okay. I was just curious.
Guessing probably some kind of news thing.
Yeah,
News
probably.
radio was kind of the big first thing.
In the 1920s?
Yeah. Definitely people talking. They also used to do like programs, which I always think it's so cute. My grandmother would be like, "Did you have a good program today?" And I'm like, nobody calls it a program anymore. But I will.
Yeah.
But we're going to change the name of the show to the Hoffman Program.
Wow.
In honor of Muriel Gantz.
Nice.
I think we should do that. We'll get on that.
Hey, Grandma.
Hey, Grandma. Anthony, were you a radio kid growing up? Were you like always into listening to radio? Like, did you listen? Because you're a DC kid. Like, were you listening to the Team 980 growing up?
Yeah. So my dad, he listened to Doc Walker when he used to come on in the morning. Who else did he listen to? I think Kevin Sheehan.
Mr. Tony back in the day.
Yeah.
Zabe.
I don't know if he listened to Zabe too much.
Sorry,
maybe
Zabe.
he did. I don't know. Big John.
Yeah.
But when it came to like sports talk, I wouldn't say I was, super into it. Now when the games came on, I definitely listened to the games. If I wasn't in front of a TV, we were definitely listening to the game. But for the most part, like when we got in the car, we were definitely just probably playing some music.
Yeah. I was a kid who listened to a ton of radio. Like, me being in radio makes a lot of sense. Because like I had an actual radio in my room. So not like and this is like originally I'm just old enough that I had to like tune it. And then I got one that was like a digital, so that was obviously made things easier. But I was also like a bit of a nerd about it. I used to like at night sometimes try to listen to whether it was WFAN or KMOX in New York or St. Louis, because I thought it was cool that I could get those stations living in Greenville, South Carolina, because at night, like those AM signals travel and cover massive amounts of area, literally across a quarter or a half of the country. But I grew up in the mornings listening to like the local sports talk station, which eventually like ended their local show. And then I grew up listening to Mike and Mike a lot. So that was really cool when I got to intern at ESPN and like got to, sit in on that show one time. And it's kind of crazy that Greenberg's still doing like morning stuff. It's just now television. And Golick's doing the stuff with Gojo, which is awesome. But yeah, man, like I grew up on it. And then as I got into college, like I was a big fan of SVP and Russillo and listened to them. At that point, it was, the podcast thing had started. And so I could rarely actually listen on time. And plus I wasn't going to be walking around campus necessarily. Like it was before like really streaming was big, but you could listen to stuff on demand on podcast. And so I would like walk around campus at Middle Tennessee State my first 2 years of school before I went to Cuse, like listening to the show from either earlier in the day or the day before. So I like have distinct memories of that and like driving around and like plugging into my car and kind of it's funny because of how much audio technology has changed in our lifetimes from pure radio when I was a kid. Like that was it. There was radio or like obviously like CDs and music stuff like you get on whether it was cassettes and then ultimately CDs. But like in terms of talk radio, it was live on the actual radio. And then you kind of got into some of the podcasting type of stuff. and then streaming became a big thing. And I remember streaming music stations too when I was in high school. Like I used to listen to Z100 in New York a lot because their music was so far ahead of ours. Like literally, you'd hear pop songs 3 months sooner on Z100 in New York than you'd get it on my station, B93.7 in South Carolina. So I remember like streaming that and being really into like what was kind of on the Z100 list. And when some of my favorite artists had their songs hit, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Kind of like we made it, even though I was just a teenage fan of a musical artist. But yeah, that's like, then I got into it, in college, like doing the hosting thing. And here we are more years than I'd like to count later.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I was in college, I knew about the radio stations at Syracuse, but I also found out about them so late. And I felt as though, like, if you got into, like, the radio game at Syracuse, it was just going to be a tough climb up because most of the people in my class, they were there when they first got to campus.
Yeah.
So they had already been putting in the work, and I was just like, it's going to be some stiff competition. Just trying to, like, even get on.
Well, that was the crazy thing for me is, like, I wound up having this very bizarre collection of experience that allowed me to come in as a transfer student, and I had been there for about 4 months when I became the general manager of one of them. Because the station that I became the GM of was Z89, which has produced so many legendary talents over the years, and WAER in the sports space has probably produced even more, which I also was lucky enough to be a part of. But with Z1, we had like a weird talent distribution in terms of classes. There was kind of like a gap where I could step in, but also it was a top 40 music station with a huge sports department. And I had interned at a top 40 radio station, the station I mentioned earlier, B93.7. I had interned there my first 2 summers after school. And then I had done a ton of sports talk radio at my old school at Middle Tennessee State before transferring. So like I came in with way more experience than the other kids who had actually started as freshmen and tried to work their way up.
Yeah.
And I had professional experience. So I was able to actually like get in and become an influential person relatively quickly, and then wind up running the station, which was super cool. But so how did you get into radio? I don't know if I've ever asked you this. We're having this real conversation on the air here, a real human conversation on National Radio Day. How did you get into radio then?
So when I graduated from Syracuse, I ran the basketball camp at Prep, and I was still like looking for work. I was applying to jobs, just anywhere. But I had no luck finding a job after, the prep camp ended. So I needed, money to like, make ends meet. And I ended up working at Morgan Stanley for, I want to say 4 months.
Oh, wow.
I was there for 4 months.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
I'm learning some of the Anthony Haney story.
Yeah. So I was working as an assistant financial advisor. I really didn't know what I was doing. They were, I was learning on the fly essentially.
Yeah.
But the guy that I was working for, Kevin Ebel, shout out to him.
What's up, Kevin?
He knew the program director at Team 980 because he had asked me what I really wanted to do. And I told him
he knew that it wasn't work for him.
Yeah. I told him I want to be involved in sports any way possible, to be honest. So he put me in contact with Chris Johnson. I interviewed with Chris, and to be honest, I had gotten his email, and I emailed him, but I had the wrong email.
Dagger.
I had the wrong email.
A classic.
So this
of the
whole
genre.
time, I was like, I want to say I waited for like 2 weeks, and Kevin's like, "You still haven't heard from CJ?" I was like, "Nope." So then I got the right email, and CJ contacted me the next day. I went over, toured the facility, sat down. It wasn't really even an interview, to be honest.
They just like get to know you, and then he had a job for you.
Yeah, he asked for my resume. I sent that over to him, and I guess I was qualified, and
here we are.
I was working as a board op, just watching the board, and that was the easiest job like ever because I essentially didn't have to do anything.
Yeah,
I just had to be there.
If you were running network programming, I've done that job. I've done every job in radio, bro. People don't realize that like I was a board op, I was a producer, I was a reporter, I was an anchor, I was a host. Like what else besides being in management?
Yeah.
I don't know what else.
I guess social media. I did do some social media over there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly doing social media.
Yeah, that too.
So there's that. But that's our radio stories.
Yeah.
Happy National Radio Day, everybody.
Wow.
We hope that you spend it by listening to the radio, which you're clearly doing right now. Coming up at 7 o'clock, Mystics and Storm here on the radio. Of course, the simulcast of the television broadcast from Monumental Sports. Megan McPeak, Christy Winter-Scott on the call. Get you ready for that, including a kind of interesting video that's emerged from the weekend from the Seattle side of things when they played Caitlin Clark and the Fever, and, of course, real things, real people said, and real microphones. To wrap up this edition of The Hoffman Show. All right, we're brought to you by Floor & Decor. Unbeatable prices, unmatched in-stock selection. Floor & Decor has more styles of laminate, vinyl, tile, wood, and stone for anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor. Anthony, so in the break there, I went over to the side studio to just wrap up a few things on that computer. And as I sat down, I smashed my funny bone. Not funny, not cool. Full like stinging hand, burning down my down my forearm, just not cool, bro.
It's not. So it's tingling right now.
I have the heebie-jeebies. It's not good. I don't like it. I'm trying to work it out. It's not my favorite. What was my favorite was the best part of the show today. We try to give you the best part of the show every day so that you have a little bit of taste of something that perhaps you want to chase down in our podcast feed. That's right. The Hoffman Show podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Get your podcast here. And we had our vibe check Tuesday, and we had a call from Dontel. And boy, was it interesting.
Hey, Hoff, thanks for taking my call, buddy. It's been a long time.
You got it.
Now, if we could date back, I don't know.
Can you pause it for a second, Anthony? Just pause. I already knew we were in trouble. Anytime we got a fumbling phone, I'm just, oh boy, we're on for a ride. But did we get off the ride? Nope. We hung on tight and we saw where it took us.
Remember or not when I said that if we didn't draft Daniels number 2, that I was going to throw all my Commander stuff away and get my Ravens gear out. So I don't have to do that now because we got him. But
wait, hold on. Did you already have?
Remember or not?
Wait, hold on. Did you already have the Ravens? Did you already have the Ravens gear, or would you have to go buy some Ravens gear?
Oh no, I got some Ravens gear. I'm from Maryland. I got a little bit of Ravens gear. I just never wear it.
I thought you interjected again, like live. My bad. That's why I stopped.
Oh, that's why you stopped the clip? No. That was me interjecting in the clip, Anthony. Not.
Yes.
My mouth wasn't moving.
My bad.
Yeah.
My man Dontel.
Yeah, my guy. And somehow got weirder from there. You're gonna have to. It was the 4:45 segment, hour 1, last part of that segment in the podcast. Just search the Hoffman Show. There's also good. I don't want to say because it wasn't a bad call. It was entertaining as hell. There was more coherent analysis from me and from fans and listeners. We had a great chat with Mike Jones at 5:00. So plenty of good stuff in the feed today. Thoughts on coaching styles at 5:30. In lieu of the Tua Tagovailoa, Brian Flores situation, all of that. Then, real quick, Anthony, do we want to talk about the Skylar Diggins, Caitlin Clark video real quick?
Ooh, it got a little spicy
because Skylar and company are in town tonight.
Who they are? Oh, they play.
They play in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Over at ESA. And there's a video that was going around today. So Caitlin Clark and the Fever just smashed the Sky or smashed the Storm in the fourth quarter on Sunday. And Clark, this is a bit of a jerk move from Caitlin, admittedly. If you're gonna do the hey, let's go rile up the crowd, doing it as you walk right into the other team's bench, you're kind of asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And Skylar Diggins very clearly goes out of her way to walk into Caitlin Clark. Does like the speed walk, I'm going to get bang, and knocks into her. Very light touch, probably smart to not like attract too much attention to it. I think that is what their coach was upset with after the game as well, or during like the end of the game. And I think it's funny because I think a lot of folks are like, they hate Caitlin. And in that moment, they were definitely not happy with Caitlin because Caitlin was being an instigator. And Caitlin has a bit of Diana Taurasi a-hole to her that I think those of us that have been watching have known for a long time. But here would be my thing real quick. I actually don't think it's personal to Caitlin. Like, that's the part that people are missing.
Yeah.
It's not that the league isn't messy at times. It's spectacularly messy. Yeah. It's part of what makes it, frankly, a really fun league to cover. But it's not personal to Caitlin. And so the narrative of like, oh, they should stop hating on Caitlin Clark. They hate on everyone. That's actually what makes Caitlin a perfect part of the league. Because Caitlin, in her own right, is kind of a hater. She's very gracious at the microphone and stuff, but in a game, she'll mess you up.
Yeah, she will.
And not just with like a crossover step back three. She'll let you know about stuff, which is fun. It's not personal. It's just business. and the W sometimes a little messy in their business. All right, it is time for Real Things Real People Said in the Real Microphones, by the way, including something from Caitlin Clark.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Now, WNBA refereeing is an adventure, and boy, was an adventure for Clark on Sunday. She got hit a couple times, no calls, not great, don't love to see it. She then let the referees know about it, was yelling at them about those non-calls that she did not like. Later in the game, she misses a three, and then in the ensuing possession, after the ball gets knocked out of bounds, she smacks the goal, like the stanchion, out of frustration. And for that, not yelling at the refs about their own decisions, but for being mad at herself and taking it out on an inanimate object, she received a technical foul. Here's what Clark said about it after.
I got a technical for basically being mad at myself because I missed the three and then I went and hit the backboard, and he told me it was disrespectful to the game of basketball. So I don't know. It reminded me of the technical that I got in college where I said, damn it, where it's like a personal frustration. Had nothing to do with my team, had nothing to do with their reffing, had nothing to do with other team. It was just because I'm a competitor and I felt like I should have been making more shots. So, but I think he fired me up to continue to play a lot harder. I thought we got a lot better after he did that. So I want to thank him for that.
And that, boys and girls, is how you avoid a fine.
I like her perspective on things. You know, the way she spun that in a very positive way.
Yeah. And Skylar Diggins, it wasn't Caitlin's fault she was riling up the crowd. It was the refs, because the ref riled her up. See? It all comes full circle. All right, tomorrow on the show, why Ezekiel Elliott wears a hoodie in very, very hot temperatures. And other things.